Welcome to the Boutique Hotel News Trendsetter webinar for 2022. My name is Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News, and I am going to be your host for today. So, in a nutshell, this webinar is going to last around 45 minutes. And in that 45 minutes, I'm going to be presenting 6 key trends that I believe is going to shape the hotel sector next year. 3 of these trends I am going to open up as a Q&A with industry experts. And we have Bram, Lily and Rohit all on the call, which I'm going to bring into the conversation later on. And I will take this opportunity to highlight that if anyone in the audience today has any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function and I will get round to these where possible. And this webinar is being recorded, so every single registrant will receive a copy of this recording at the end.
Thank you, Eloise.
So today's sponsor is Cvent, and I'm going to hand over to Carla Pierce to just run through some of the trends that they're seeing at the company.
And hello to everyone. My name is Carla Pierce. I work for Cvent. I'm a senior marketing manager for Cvent Hospitality Cloud in Europe. And I know that some of you attended an event last week with Boutique Hotelier News, which was fantastic. Some of the speakers that are today at the webinar were at the event, and they were talking a little bit about the trends. And I wanted to just give our 2 cents on the trends that we're seeing for 2022 when it comes to MICE. We're going to publish a big ebook about it, so stay tuned. But I wanted to talk about 3 things that were actually also mentioned during that in-person gathering, and I'm sure it will be part of today's webinar. And one is obviously sustainability. And how important it is to planners, and we see it on the platform when they're sourcing. They're always asked sustainability questions, especially not only for the third-party planners, but also for the big corporations that have an actual target to meet, and I think the venue should be part of that. When it comes to technology, easy technology is something that they really look after, from 3D tours to event diagramming, collaboration, and anything that that has to do with technology, and some of the things that are more practical, like Mike Liverton was saying, who is also a speaker today, but was saying at the event, you know, everything, it doesn't matter how good the event is, it will fail if we don't have the right and good high speed connection. And then the third one is new personas are indeed sourcing. So it's not only about the meeting planner. We also have a new persona that we're seeing that could be a marketer, because of virtual events and hybrid events. The marketers, such as myself, are being even more involved when it comes to anything regarding MICE, because it is now a dual event, and they're capitalizing much more on the benefits of the in-person or hybrid event, or even the virtual one. So just as a, you know, as the last Christmas present before the end of the year, I know this is one of the last webinars, we have the Cvent Countdown. So if you miss any of our content, everything is completely free. Just scan your mobile phone and you can see it, watch it. We had a lot of sessions on venue sourcing, and yeah, anything like that you can see there. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to the audience, Eloise, and yeah, we'll speak soon.
And as Carla mentioned, we've popped further details about Cvent and the Cvent Countdown into the chat. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have Bram, Lily and Rohit on today's webinar. And I think our best plan of action is that when we get round to those individual Q&As, I will ask each of them to very briefly introduce themselves before we discuss that particular trend. So let's talk about boutique hotel trends, and I'm going to begin with my number 1, and that is motels make a comeback. And I know I am probably just as surprised as you are, though I do have my reasons for believing this. And I think motels have long been stereotyped as perhaps stale, beige, vanilla accommodations, but with the hospitality landscape now altered, I think there is great opportunity here to breathe new life into outmoded buildings. And I know that in the US, Motels have made a contemporary comeback with the likes of Bunkhouse and most recently the June Motel, which if you've seen on Netflix, has made that motel popular. And these examples, they're small in size and they have stylish interiors. So you could argue that these properties are more aligned with boutique hotels. And for instance, on your screens here, Cassetta Group has just revived the historic Casa Cody, and Lifehouse has just been selected to manage the Rancho Camus Inn, which is the Stonehouse Capital story there on your right-hand side. Both of these properties feature exterior corridors that are synonymous with motels, despite these products being marketed as boutique hotels. And I think to best iterate my point, we have Molly's Motel and Diner from the team at Soho House, which has just revealed ambitious expansion plans to open 100 additional sites within the next decade. And this particular example, a self-described budget luxe brand, is catering to the many trends brought about by COVID. First of all, Molly's is seeking city centre and roadside locations, which I think can help future-proof the brand by appealing to both the international and the domestic market. We've seen many embark on road trips and take a camper van and then all whatnot. Actually, on premises, Molly's room types actually span double, twin, bunk, and interconnecting. So they're appealing to solo, group, and family travelers. And there's even a co-working space at one of the 2 already open sites to attract that mobile workforce. And other established names, such as Motel One, has also just signed a 20-year lease for a hotel in New York City, which marks the chain's entry into the US market. And that's referring to the Union Investment story in the bottom right-hand corner. I believe Union Investment is the biggest landlord for Motel One. And Motel One has also just moved into Scandinavia with an opening in Copenhagen. So you take these healthy expansion plans and you couple it with the fact that economy hotels are recovering quicker than their counterparts. And I can see factors such as affordability, high-end design, and the community vibe that motels actually instill, I think are going to drive this product as a very popular accommodation choice next year. So to move on to my next trend, I believe that owners are going to diversify their portfolios. And this is my opportunity to bring Bram into the conversation. So Bram, why don't I hand over to you briefly so that you can introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you, Eloise. And hello, everyone. Greetings from Amsterdam. You're gonna already see, I already prepared for for Christmas, and I brought the Christmas tree actually for the audience, Eloise. But let me, what we did basically pre-COVID, we were already considering and introducing something big within Sircle. I'm the CEO for Sircle Collection. And Sircle Collection, we feature 3 brands. One of them is Sir Hotels, Max Brown Hotels, and Park Central Hotels. And what we did, and I think COVID actually helped us to speed this up, is we have opened our very first members club in Barcelona. And real plans, we made back in 2020 already. So we started our preparations. And in the second quarter of this year, we introduced Sircle Members Club in Barcelona. For those of you who know our brands, I mean, for us, it's all about our communities and engaging with our communities. And I think COVID brought us even more closer in this strange world. And but we took that actually an advantage to accelerate the rollout. And in one of our beautiful properties in Barcelona, Sir Victor, we had also the opportunity from a spacing point of view to introduce a members club in where we have, of course, a social life, but we have a work life and a well-being. And so we introduced co-working spaces. So there's a dedicated floor where you can actually work together, if you like, in a communal space. We have telephone booths there, to make private calls, but also private meeting and small meeting and event spaces and a club room. So it's all there, for a local community to bring them in our places. And obviously, it's one of our ideas that we introduced to add our bottom line. So it's basically additional revenues, crafting additional revenues from your existing audience.
Was the idea to introduce a members club in direct response to COVID, or was it already in the works beforehand?
Well, the general idea is, everything is actually so floating into each other, right? It's not just actually, the old days that, you went to a hotel and you had a stay just for leisure. Now everything actually is combined. You work and you have, time for fun. And I think COVID, was also looking for a space outside actually your home space to offer this opportunity. So that's why we introduced it in Barcelona, and it all actually pays off. We only started in the second quarter of this year, as I mentioned, but we can see already, the revenues, actually the additional revenues floating into the space.
Mm-hmm. So looking then at how you've expanded your core business and looking at those other additional revenue streams, if you like, do you see other opportunities outside of hospitality?
Yes, definitely. What we learned during these strange times that hotels, actually, particularly in Europe, were used or converted even some floors into workspaces. Also there was a more in need of a short stay or long stay in the hotels as well. So what we have actually piloted is in one of our places, we introduced, spaces for young professionals. And we have actually piloted this for a year or so, and we felt this also is an opportunity for us to combine it in our future expansion. So for instance, that, you would have maybe in the future, in our place, you have not just hotel rooms, but you have also, for long stay guests, you offer your facilities as well. And I think that ties in beautifully also with our Sircle memberships model as well. And this could be actually a platform, for engaging even more with your communities. So that's definitely something, what we have experienced and what we will take into consideration for future opportunities.
We've seen many hotels pivot to the extended stay model during the pandemic, and I actually ran a story on one of the boutique hotel news newsletters. It must have been a couple of weeks ago, where the launch of a new members club in London wasn't actually the main story, but it was by far the most read and most clicked story in that newsletter, which says to me that there's reader appetite to understand what's happening within that members club market and where that might be moving to. And we've seen on the last week, we held a trends event in London, and I actually talked about why I think owners are going to diversify their portfolios, and several of the hotel chains this year have introduced soft brands, clearly spying opportunity to better support independent hotel owners. And I think within this move is a much larger conversation around the value of a brand. And I'd like to ask yourself, Bram, whether you think the value and power of a brand has shifted and what this could mean for independent owner operators.
Yeah, like I just said, Eloise, I think, I think people became more and more closer, I think, in our local communities. So it's even more important that, that we capitalize on our local communities and also engage more, even more than in the past. I mean, we already did that, before, but I think COVID really also helped us, that to focus on our community strength. And so yeah, we definitely believe that, a brand actually should definitely take their communities around their places into consideration, even more than before.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bram. And Bram's LinkedIn profile has been popped into the chat, so I encourage our audience to connect and follow on the conversation, and obviously pop him any questions that you might like. So let's move on then to look at our third trend for today, and that is hotel F&B gets a revamp. And this is probably one of the biggest trends that I'm covering, in that it covers many different angles or pillars, because hotels have been forced, or when they were forced to close their doors, many chose to take on a takeaway service or a delivery service. And in this top left-hand corner here, the owner of the Stair Arms Hotel in Scotland, called Amanda Ramsey, has since introduced a permanent drive-through housed in an old shipping container as a result of operating a very successful takeaway service during lockdown. And again, because restaurants and hotel restaurants have closed during this time, it's accelerated the growth of ghost kitchens. And I know, again, another story here, we have Graduate Hotels, which has partnered with food and beverage platform C3 to launch a food hall concept. And this is a digital model that is going to allow graduate hotels to offer an array of different cuisines available to dine in, take away, or via delivery, all from one place or under one roof. Now, when you look at the digital takeaway world and the competition within it, I think emphasizing a property's on-site dining experience is going to be absolutely critical, as is the mindset of a gentleman I know called Robert Thompson. He's the founder and CEO of Angevin & Co, and he was actually on one of my earlier webinars this year. And his business has just partnered with Lark Hotels to launch several hospitality projects across the States, the first being the Frenchman Hotel in New Orleans. And he said at the time, "We are designing hotel spaces from a restaurateur's perspective and re-engineering the food and beverage platform at each destination to elevate the guest experience." And I know there's another restaurant brand developer called Sam Fox, who is also moving into luxury hotels with the opening of the Global Ambassador in Phoenix. And it won't be the first time that leaders with an F&B background have actually entered the hotel space. We have Brewdog, which has opened a hotel in Manchester and Edinburgh this year. We have Forshon Hospitality, which has opened its second property in Kyoto, Japan, and a third has just recently been signed in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And in some many extreme cases, we've got brands such as KFC, which has even launched a pop-up hotel in London over the summer. And this pop-up concept, again, has been embraced by many hotel groups. Newly launched UK brand Guest House introduced a tippled truck, and they toured food festivals around the UK. The Hoxton has even opened an incubator kitchen at its site in Holborn for chefs in residence. And I think the rotating nature of these projects lends itself to staying at the forefront of food trends. And just want to finish this particular section by touching on technology. I know that IHG Hotels and Resorts CEO Keith Barr just last month recently called for more innovation in the F&B sector, particularly in the deployment of technology to drive a positive guest experience. And I know that customer-facing technology, such as the ability to rate your dish and send feedback directly to the kitchen, has already come into play. Payment systems to accumulate orders into a digital tab rather than you paying for each order as and when you place that order is already being implemented, as are capabilities to tip certain team members. And with sustainability rising up the agenda, I do wonder if at some point down the line, customers might be able to trace the ingredients that are being used by the kitchen teams and even have the choice to offset the carbon emission of their meal. I don't know, but I say you heard it here first. And next year, I think there's real potential for hotels to be innovative, even experimental in their F&B service and offering. Now, I've just touched on sustainability, which leads me rather nicely into my fourth trend, and that is that the S in ESG becomes amplified. And this is my opportunity to bring Lily into the conversation, please. So Lily, why don't we begin by introducing yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Eloise. Hello, everyone. I'm Lily Wecker. I'm a vice president at Zetland Capital. Within Zetland, I specialize in hotel investments. Zetland is a special sits fund based in London, investing across Europe. We currently have roughly €1 billion asset under management, and I focus on both hotel investments as well as portfolio management post-closing. So I effectively manage all of our hotel operators in the portfolio. Great to be here. Thanks, Eloise.
Thanks, Lily. So let me begin, Lily, by asking, how are ESG principles feeding into investor demands and that decision-making process?
Yeah, absolutely, Eloise. ESG is now really a critical component, I think, since COVID in our due diligence and IC investment committee process. So ESG is already baked into the original technical due diligence before COVID. But since COVID, we've now implemented ESG due diligence into our operating partner as well as the management team in a transaction process. And what that entails is to understand where the hotel currently stands from an ESG point of view beyond the energy and the technical aspects of the building. It also includes understanding the appetite and how things have been done in the past so that we can identify value creation levers from day one. It doesn't necessarily mean that a hotel with a low ESG standing today will be vetoed or rejected in the IC process, but we use it as essentially a main lever to identify how we can create value immediately after closing. When we invest in a hotel or any hospitality assets, especially when you're highlighting this the social aspects of an investment, we typically look at how the operators have treated their people in the past, and whether the management team has any room for improvement in terms of caring for the team members, caring for the staff, as well as caring for the guests. It's already an integral part of our due diligence process now, and our investment committee absolutely treat it as a gatekeeping item before final approval.
Because I'm aware that it's the E in the ESG, which is the environmental side of it, is probably the most easiest to measure. Because you can measure your energy, you can measure your waste and such. But when it comes to that social component, I do wonder whether there is like a KPI for it, and exactly how are you measuring it? I know Bram alluded earlier about the well-being of the community and also the staff. So exactly how are you measuring it? Yes.
Sure. So absolutely. Since acquisition, we've now rolled out requirements for all of the hotels we own to do a year-end employee engagement survey. And that, obviously that's anonymous, but the point of doing that survey is to make sure there's enough communication across different levels and different departments around the acquisition, change of ownership, as well as to provide a sense of security and safety to all staff members. We treat the employee engagement survey very seriously across hotels, predominantly because we own hotels also across jurisdictions. So in the UK, in Ireland, there may be a little bit more government support overall. Okay, I see a question coming in, which I can answer later on. We have more government support overall for instance, employee furloughs or wage subsidies, which provided a lot of security to the staff members. When you go to Southern Europe, that may not be the case, depending on the region and depending on the contract. And we do make an effort through the employee engagement survey to understand how people are feeling today and how we can help as owners. We also track churn rates, so retention rates at different levels and across the hotels. Of course, as you're aware, there is a labor shortage, an ongoing labor shortage, especially in housekeeping, F&B, and kitchen staff. So from the vacancy point of view, we're still trying to fill our vacancies. We still have quite a bit across our hotels. But from a retention point of view, we also focus a lot on human resource development, on promoting from within, and making sure that we don't lose people to other industries, for instance. And then I think lastly, something that we set with the Morrison Hotel as a pilot, I suppose, but we'll roll out across the portfolio, is to pay people with living wage, not just minimum wage, across part-time and all customer-facing and non-customer-facing staff. That is a goal, and we expect to fulfill that as soon as we recover to 2019 level, which should be in 2 to 3 years' time. And we already, I think, more or less meet that target of paying everybody with a living wage. But increasingly, we'll enforce that as the policy throughout the portfolio.
And off the back of that comment, Lily, how else do you think that the social responsibility of a business or other brands are going to be enhanced next year? I mean, just off my own, what I've seen, for example, on LinkedIn when it comes to the labour shortage, I've seen many owners or general managers, for example, rehash contracts, and they're adding in additional things around the well-being, access to a mental health counsellor, etc., etc. So how do you think that it's going to be amplified next year?
Yeah, I think it comes from two angles. So the first one is really a new kind of generation of consumers and investors as well, all demanding to care for people and the community is the S aspect of an ESG. And that's, I think, irreversible. End of the day, it's about doing what's right for your staff members, but also using it to attract new talents into the pipeline. I think hospitality overall historically had a poor reputation at times when it comes to treating people. And that has to change so that we can continue to attract new talent. And I think so that's, I think, one source. And it's all around just, like you said, Eloise, employee benefits, also building a positive culture, a learning and open culture of a workplace that people want to be part of. But then I think the second part, on the other hand, labor shortage also forced people during the pandemic to essentially readjust wage levels. You've seen wage inflation, I imagine, across the customer-facing roles as well as F&B kitchen positions. And we do believe that this is it could be a permanent adjustment, simply because they were underpaid historically, and now we need to make that structural adjustments and ensure that people are paid fairly. There is also a more, I think from a Zetland Capital point of view, a more conscious effort to make sure people feel safe and stay healthy in their workplace. So there are new, essentially, public health hygiene practices that we're rolling out, and that goes beyond simply, I suppose, paying people more. So that there's both the reactive part of it and also the proactive part of it that I expect to change. And then I think lastly, Eloise, to your point around the app, I haven't heard of any app functions that tells you the source of your food, but there is an element of adding transparency to between the hotel and their guests, as well as their staff. And the transparency lays around simply communicating more on what you're doing in terms of local sourcing, what we're doing on energy consumption. I mean, the current energy crisis also highlight the importance of energy efficiency and carbon footprint, of course. That's another, I think, element of where the brands will go. It's to emphasize communication and be transparent about what you're doing. Hilton and Marriott, individual hotel brands, all have their independent programs. And I imagine going forward, there will just be more communication and more actions across the region. Yeah.
Thanks, Lily. And whilst we're with you, Lily, as you mentioned, we had a question come in. What cities does Zetland Capital focus on?
Sure. So Zetland focuses predominantly on city center locations as well as resort destinations, so 100% leisure, essentially. So in city center locations, we focus on London, although we don't currently have a hotel in London. Let me know if you do. So we focus on London, Manchester, Edinburgh, as well as a handful of second-tier cities in the UK. We would look at Dublin as well. We already have a hotel there. And we would also look at a handful of other metropolitans, such as Paris, Amsterdam, and Barcelona. In terms of geographic footprints, we currently focus on Western Europe, so UK, London, Spain, France, Portugal, Italy, and Greece are all markets that either we're actively in already or we're looking at an assets actively. So these are essentially markets that we would look for. And city center obviously depends on corporates and a mix of corporate and leisure. And resort destinations, we look at predominantly leisure demand.
Brilliant.
I hope that's helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lily. And on that point, we've actually had a comment come through saying, I'm really enjoying the industry insight. So we're clearly on the right tracks here. So to move on to my fifth trend for today, I believe that we're going to see greater consolidation in hotel technology. I mean, we've all, to some degree, had to implement or adopt technology across many different sectors, but I think that this has set the stakes pretty high for hospitality and even more so for hotels, because customers are seeking highly personalized stays, convenient touch points, whether that's a self-service or face-to-face. And as Lily mentioned, at a time when the industry is grappling with labor shortages, and I think digital transformation has moved from a discretionary spend to become essential infrastructure, and it's going to serve an important purpose in the route to recovery. Now, to highlight some examples on the slide in front of you, we have some hotel brands such as Public and others like Citizen M, which designed and launched their own bespoke app during the pandemic. And on the supplier side, we have platforms such as Alice, which introduced enhanced capabilities and features. And all of these have been in response to the market shifts brought about by COVID. But if the shift towards contactless hotel stays is to become permanent, then the need to easily upgrade or deploy technology is going to be absolutely critical, particularly as new suppliers enter the market. And this is where the integration piece comes in, because I know that it is one of the biggest pain points for general managers. And I think the ability to customize a tech stack is going to be compromised when those interfaces don't speak to each other. And there's a management system called Hoek, which has just launched an integration finder tool to enable hoteliers to source additional functionalities and applications to enhance their internal systems. And I know other tech suppliers have done the same thing. TripAdvisor Plus has just upgraded its infrastructure to connect with additional partners. And to take this a step further, a few more examples on your screens here, we've got Sendine and Muse, which have merged with or even acquired technology platforms to offer a more expansive suite of tools. Lifehouse, I believe I mentioned earlier, they've just been selected to manage an inn in the US. They've just recently completed a $60 million funding round led by investors Kayak and Eloise Capital to actually sell its platform directly to hoteliers and operators. And this is a unique example because Lifehouse is both a hotel manager and a software developer, but they are going to leverage API first products in the market to build this platform. So it seems to me that the technology solutions that hoteliers require already exist, and that next year is going to be the year for greater collaboration in the space. And to move on, as we're on the topic of technology, this is my sixth and final trend for today, and that is hotels are going to embrace cryptocurrencies. I've seen a handful of examples in this past year, but I know Rohit is an expert in the field. So Rohit, as I hand over to you, would you mind introducing yourself first, please?
Hi, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Rohit Talwar. I'm a futurist. So I spend a lot of my time helping people in the travel, tourism, leisure and aviation sectors think about the emerging future and how do we prepare for a range of possibilities. Right now, probably the hottest topic we're talking to in every sector we work with, including financial services and construction, is this notion of the crypto economy. And what we're seeing is that a number of hotels have already started to accept crypto. People like the Dolder Grand in Switzerland, the Bobby in Nashville, Resorts World in Las Vegas, and then some groups like S Hotels in the Maldives, Pavilions, and the Kessler Collection. And in some cases, they're buying in because they have a real passion for crypto and all that it represents. But in a lot of cases, they're simply adopting it because customers want to pay that way. We know in the US, around 25% of travelers now say they want to play with crypto. In the UK, we know that more people aged under 25 own crypto than own a pension or a savings plan. So we're seeing the adoption rates going up. The number of people who use crypto is around 300 million worldwide. It's the fastest rate of adoption of any technology. Bitcoin has been the best performing financial asset in history, and that was the first of the cryptos. So the market is moving. There are obviously lots of risks and concerns. And our advice to everyone we work with, everyone we're talking to, is start off by doing some learning. Just understand this space. Move aside from the noise and the media hype or whatever, and really start to understand what are the different types of crypto assets, where are the issues around energy, how can you accept crypto, how can you pay it, allow customers to use crypto with you, and then look at the broader trends that are going on. And perhaps the game-changing trend right now is that MasterCard are saying to all of the 20,000 plus banks they deal with, plus the millions of vendors, that they will be able to accept cryptos from clients, they'll be able to sell crypto, and they'll be able to hold crypto on behalf of their customers. So this means that billions of people who use MasterCard will be able to pay for, through crypto in all sorts of locations. So we expect that the adoption of crypto to go up massively next year. What we are saying to clients is, look, in most cases, you shouldn't hold on to the crypto. There's a big concern about the value going up or down, but that doesn't really matter if you convert it straight away to whatever your base currency is. So if it's dollars or pounds or euros, just convert it straight away. Some have a slightly greater risk appetite. So what we're seeing is them taking typically less than 5% of the total client bill that's paid in crypto and holding it in crypto, and then every month or so looking at it and deciding if the value has gone up, whether to sell some or to hold it, but taking a slightly longer term view. And then a third group are starting to look at whether they can do innovative things with this. So could we say to a customer, particularly a corporate customer, well, look, if you prepay for a certain number of nights over the next 2 or 3 years in crypto, we'll lock the price in now, but we'll also hold a proportion of your payment to one side. And if the value of that goes up in crypto, then we'll share the gains with you. And you can use those gains to buy additional nights. So you're suddenly turning the procurement function in your corporate buyers into a profit center for them. So there's some really interesting ideas. And then finally, the sort of ideas on the horizon are whether the big players, the Hiltons and of this world and the Marriott start to accept crypto and create global solutions that any hotel owner around the world can adopt, and just make it easy for anyone to adopt crypto. We're also looking at the potential in the future for someone like Disney to create their own token so that anyone buying Disney goods or services or experiences anywhere around the world from any retailer can buy using Disney's tokens, which will massively increase Disney's value. And in the long term, you could see companies, new hotel companies, being born as crypto ventures. So rather than issuing shares, issuing crypto tokens that could be used both as the investment in that brand, but also a way of buying hotel nights from that brand. So it's a very exciting space. It's moving very quickly. Literally every week we're hearing about a new hotel adopting crypto. What we think is it's very important there to step aside from that hype and just focus in on, well, what is it? And what is our risk appetite, and therefore using that as the approach to how you accept crypto. But again, reminding ourselves that the reason why most of us are doing this is simply because you've got a growing group of people who want to pay in crypto. And why would we deny ourselves the opportunity to take those revenues?
So are we agreeing that the consumer here is driving that crypto adoption, and that knock-on effect that it can have, or the impact that can have on hotel business models? You've highlighted several examples there, Rohit, is vast.
Absolutely. And it could start to lead into all sorts of interesting relationships with customers over time as we develop a deeper and deeper understanding of crypto. But the other side that I think is also really interesting from an owner perspective and an investor perspective is that this becomes one of the routes for building new properties. We're seeing this idea of tokenization emerge. So if I want to buy one Amazon share or one Hilton share, I need several hundred or several $1,000s to do it. Within crypto, you can buy literally 1/quintillionth of a Bitcoin. That's down to 18 decimal places. So we can start to bring those ideas into real estate. And you're seeing more and more people doing this now, where they're saying, okay, let me take a £5 million property, let me break that into 5 million tokens of £1 each. And then I might buy some with my cash, I might buy some of those tokens with a mortgage, but then I'll open it up to a very wide range of other investors and participants to buy tokens in that property. The great thing is that you then have a marketplace where people can sell their tokens before the property itself is sold, because you've got a marketplace going on. And I think we'll see those marketplaces emerging for tokenized properties. Mm-hmm. And what we'll see is more and more hotel operators saying, actually, this is a great way of bringing in some of the service providers to our property, to have themselves get paid in tokens in the property, getting the local community involved to take stakes, maybe even the local municipalities. If you look at Florida, Miami has its own crypto token now. And every time a token is validated, mined, there's a tiny fee that goes to the miner. They take 30% of that. And in the first week alone, they raised $1 million for investment in local facilities, tourism development, that kind of stuff. So the range of possibilities is just going to grow. There's an explosion of opportunity happening. El Salvador was the first country to accept crypto as legal tender on the 7th of September. You're going to see a lot more countries doing this in the next 12 to 18 months, which will make it even easier for people to pay.
Mm-hmm. And I'll have a final question for you, Rohit. You've talked about this development or establishment of like an ecosystem, and I'm wanting to look at a hotel ecosystem, because hotels have traditionally run loyalty schemes or reward schemes. So what knock-on effects could the adoption of crypto have on loyalty?
So a couple of things. The MasterCard initiative is going to accept loyalty points in. So I might be able to bring my loyalty points in from a Hyatt and then just convert them to crypto and then use them anywhere. But you'll see more and more brands allowing you to take your loyalty points in a crypto. And that's why someone like Disney is interested, because they could pay you in a Disney crypto token. But I think we'll also see more aggregators emerge who will allow that kind of exchange between loyalty points into crypto and back again. But we'll also see, I think, some new and interesting partnerships emerge. So Singapore Airlines, with their KrisFlyer program, are allowing some level of conversion from crypto to their tokens. So you could start to see these things becoming even more powerful within alliances, with alliances between hotel groups and airlines. And the challenge is around the business model for loyalty points. Mm-hmm. We know some groups rely on loyalty points in a sense not being redeemed. So when you have much higher levels of redemption, what does that mean? And does that lead to crypto also being used as an asset on the balance sheet as a way of securing the value of the tokens that are being issued as loyalty rewards? So we're going to see some interesting changes. And I think we'll see this accelerate in the next year or two. And we're starting to see some hotel brands seeing themselves as being born as a crypto venture, whether it's the way they're financing the property, the way they're running the reservations business, and the way they're running their loyalty scheme, that crypto will sit at the heart of all that. So inevitably, people will have a lot of concerns. The only way to address those is through research, deepening our understanding, and working out whether our concerns are real or whether they can be addressed through practical solutions.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Rohit. I appreciate your time and insights. And as with the other speakers, Rohit's LinkedIn profile has been popped into the chat for you to follow up on and ask any questions. And just some comments that are coming in from the chat today. Thank you for the great presentation, superb. Thanks to you for such a fantastic and interesting presentation. I'm highly honoured to be part of today's session. So thanks and applause all round. So that is my 6 key trends set to shape the hotel sector next year. I just have a few closing slides to run through before we sign off today. This webinar forms part of the Trailblazer webinar series. This is the final webinar that I am hosting this year, but we are going to come back on February the 14th, it's Valentine's Day, for a topic on sustainable supply chains. And we've taken on 2 new sponsors. We have Bizon and Eleanor. So show me some love. The registration link has been popped into the chat, and I would love to see you all there. To highlight some events that we are also going to be holding early next year, we've got our Recharge the Shorties Awards, Service Department Awards, and the Urban Living Festival. And if you would like to hear further information about any of our events and other creative solutions for your brand, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are up on the screen, and her LinkedIn profile has also been popped into the chat for you. So all that's left for me to say is thank you. Thank you to Bram, thank you to Lily, and thank you to Rohit for your insights. Thank you to Cvent for sponsoring. Thanks again for our audience for tuning in and for your support over this year. I will take this time to say Happy Christmas if I don't see you before December. And we're going to leave this webinar open for an extra 2 minutes. And this is to give our audience the time to go through the chat and follow up on any links that is necessary. But otherwise, I bid you farewell. Have a jolly good old Christmas, and I will see you all in the new year. Take care.